Hello everyone, I'm Chase, a Rocky Mountain ATV giving you a closer look at the ATR-1 from 6D Helmets. All right everyone, thanks for checking in. So today we're giving you a closer look at the ATR-1 helmet from 6D. So the ATR-1's been around for a while. In fact, this helmet came to market in 2013. But when this helmet came out, I think you can easily argue that it had the most innovative technology of any off-road motocross helmet that we had ever seen. Now fast forward to today, it's still awesome. The technology that you have inside here, it's their ODS, stands for Omni-Directional Suspension. It is super cool, it's very innovative, and I think 6D, if you ask me, I think they kind of paved the way for other helmet manufacturers to step up their game when it comes to rotational energy management inside a helmet. And what that omnidirectional suspension is inside here, and we're going to show you a lot more here in just a few minutes, but they have actually two EPS liners inside this helmet, and those EPS liners are separated by their isolation dampers. And those isolation dampers essentially act as suspension for the helmet, and they move in 6 degrees of motion, hence the name 6D. So it just does a great job of reducing and mitigating those linear impacts straight up and down, as well as that rotational energy, and that's what makes this helmet so innovative. So we're going to go through, and we're going to talk all about that. Before we get there though, let's just talk about fit. So with the ATR-1, I haven't ridden in this, but I've tried it on, and I also do have personally an ATR-2. So the ATR-2 replaced the ATR-1 as a flagship model a few years later, but they're both going to fit very similar. So the ATR-1, as far as price point goes, is going to be about $500. You jump up to the ATR-2, it's going to be about $700. Like I said, both helmets are very similar, but if you want to learn about the ATR-2, watch that product spotlight. But as far as the fit goes, super comfortable. I have no complaints. Size large comes in at 3 pounds 5 ounces, so a little bit heavier than some of the other premium helmets that are out there, but one thing that I noticed is that when you put this on, it doesn't feel that heavy because they do a great job as far as putting the weight a little bit lower in the helmet, so it doesn't feel that heavy when you actually have it on. Keep in mind, this isn't a apparel item. This goes for any helmet that we sell at Rocky Mountain. If you are not happy with how it fits, send it back in brand new, unused condition, and you can exchange it for a different size or even a different helmet for that matter if you're not happy with how it fits, because we want to make sure you get the size and the fit that you are looking for. So, ATR-1, you got 3 different shell sizes with this. Give you a little 360 view here. You can be a DOT compliant. Now the shell construction is going to be a composite shell. You've got a mixture of fiberglass, carbon fiber, and Kevlar. Now, one thing I actually found pretty interesting when I was talking to 6D is they actually wanted to have a little bit more flex in the shell of this helmet compared to some of the other helmets that are out there. And their reasoning behind that is they felt that if you have a helmet shell that's too rigid, it's not going to absorb some of that impact. So they wanted to be still rigid enough that's going to protect you, but they still want to have a little bit more give just to help absorb some of that extra energy. So pretty cool there. As far as venting goes, there's going to be no lack here. You've got big vents up here underneath the visor. You've got these vents right here in the eye port. You got big vents that go along the chin bar as well, so the helmet breathes really good. If we flip it around, we look at the back, you can see you got these exhaust vents up here on the top, and when we pull out the comfort liner, you're going to see that in the actual EPS liner, there are channels that are built in to help that air circulate and get through, and then you can see you've got these exhaust vents down here in the back as well. I also want to point out, which is pretty unique, you have these collarbone cutouts right here. So you can see I can easily get my fingers underneath here on the side, you know, just one more thing they're thinking about, trying to protect the rider's collarbone, so you've got those cutouts there. And also, underneath the chin bar, they're actually utilizing a little bit softer material right here. So you've got some padding, and this is just kind of a sternum pad. So, you know, you go down, your chin's going straight into your chest. That's just there to help kind of protect the rider's sternum. Also, you notice right here with the mouth guard, you do have this extension, just a softer plastic material, so that's going to do a great job as far as you protecting you from rocks and roost. But if you don't want that in there, you can take that out. Very simple to do, just pops right out. So you got a couple different options as far as that goes. Now with the visor, here's what I like. When they came out with the ATR-2 had a new updated visor, which is the one that they now have on the ATR-1. I'm glad they did this. The ATR-1, the old visor, wasn't my favorite looking. I think the new visor just gives it a better look, so I'm glad that they did take that route. You'll notice too, you do have a little bit of adjustability with the visor. The screws on this are actually, they're hollowed out, so they're shear away. So if you do go down, obviously with the visor, you don't want that to add any rotational, energy or forces to the rider's head and neck. So by having those be shear away, it just makes it a little bit easier for that visor to break off if you do have a crash. So that's the outside of the helmet. Last thing I'll point out is that the eye port on this, it is plenty large. I've ridden with several different brands of goggles in my ATR-2, which is going to be very comparable as far as the eye port goes, and I've had no issues with any brand of goggles fitting inside here. So that's the outside. But now, let's take it to the inside. So first up, you got your D-ring here, and you've actually got titanium D-rings, which is pretty cool. It kind of just helps lighten up the helmet a little bit. So I'll undo this chin strap. So with that undone, first thing I want to point out, you have emergency cheek pad removal system. So what's nice, the rider goes down, you're trying to get the helmet off safely, so you can just take these little tabs with your finger, and you can just use those to pop the cheek pads out. So it's pretty simple to do. Also, these are antimicrobial. You have the Cool Max liner on the inside, super comfortable liner. And what's nice too is that, you know, like most other helmets, if you get this dirty and sweaty, you can throw it in the washing machine. I air dry mine. I don't put these in the dryer, but once they dry, put it back in the helmet, you're good to go. So pop this other one out. Take out the comfort liner. So when you look inside here, again, there's that EPS liner that I talked about. Again, you can see those channels that are cut in there. Those are just gonna help, again, circulate that air. You can see you've got the holes that are going directly through the liner to the rider's head. So they wanna get as much air circulating and passing through that helmet as possible. So that's gonna be the inside of the helmet. So now, let's show you what I mentioned previously, which is that omnidirectional suspension, because you're not gonna be able to see it with the helmet just like it is. So, thank you to the people over at 6D because they sent me some really cool props just to give you a better understanding of what I'm talking about here. So this right here is what the EPS liner on the inside of the helmet looks like. And here's what's cool, you can notice right away. You actually have two separate EPS liners. Now EPS stands for expanded polystyrene, and the reason that this material is used in helmets because it does a great job of crushing and absorbing energy. But 6D, they didn't stop there. You have the two EPS liners, and then in between these two liners, you have their isolation dampeners. And these dampeners, what they do, like I mentioned, they move in 6 degrees of motion, so it's almost like suspension inside the rider's helmet. So these isolation dampeners, they can absorb linear impacts, so straight up and down, but because they can also move in those 6 degrees of motion, what it does, it slows down and mitigates those rotational energy and forces to the rider's brain. Now here, let me give you an even better example. So they actually sent me the helmet that Zach Bell was wearing when he was riding for Geico Honda. So a lot of people might remember this night, but Zach Bell, I believe was in Texas, had a couple big crashes, you know, leading up to the races. And because he was wearing this helmet, a lot of people credit the technology in here that Zach Bell was actually able to continue racing that night, because if you watch those crashes, you know, they were pretty gnarly. But you can see right here, great example. You've got the two EPS liners, and there's one of those isolation dampeners right here. You can see I can move it around with my fingers, so it moves in all different directions, but also I can crush that so it goes up and down. So that's what it looks like on the inside of the helmet. You gotta remember, with helmets and riders' heads, when it comes to concussions and just brain injuries in general, we're talking milliseconds here. And here's why this is so important. When you have a big crash and you hit the ground and your head smacks the ground, what's really causing that injury in most situations is a sudden stop, because your head stops moving, the brain's not gonna wanna stop because you've got that spinal fluid inside there, so the brain will then hit the rider's skull, and that's what causes those injuries to the rider's brain. So the longer that you can essentially keep everything moving, think about the fluid inside your head that you already have, that's there to help protect your brain. So the longer that you can keep those two liners inside there moving, the more it's gonna help reduce and mitigate those rotational forces, because by having those move freely from each other, it's gonna really reduce and not make that sudden stop nearly as abrupt or as damaging, because they can move freely from each other. And that's why they went with this design, because, you know, anything you can do to help protect the rider's head, that's gonna be a bonus in my book. And that is it. That is the ATR-1 from 6D. Like I said, when this helmet first came out, way back in 2013, it was really cool, innovative technology back then. Fast forward to today, it's still amazing. I really like what these guys have done. So if you have questions or comments, or if you've ridden in one of these helmets, we want to hear your feedback. Maybe you have a good story to tell, leave those below. It's going to help other riders out. To pick one up, you can click on the link or head over to RockyMountainATVMC.com. Remember, all orders over $75 ship free. If you guys like this spotlight, you want to see more like it, we've got a lot of other great product spotlights on other premium helmets. We have our buyer's guide, so if you're not quite sure, if you're looking for a good starting point, give those a watch, and that's going to help you out. I am Chase, and we'll see you on the trails.